I would like to introduce to you the chair of the panel today, James Castle, chairman of Castle Asia, and he would take over from now. Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much, Sachin, and a very good afternoon to everyone. It's really exciting to be here. The tradition of moderators is to give you a little background on the subject and orient you. You're safe today. I know very little about Superblocks. I'm relying very much on the wise people we have on our panel. So I'm just here to make sure things go smoothly, ask a few questions, and most importantly, after they've given these very brief presentations, to have a good dialogue with all of you, with our speakers today. So I'd like to begin and invite to join me here on the stage, first of all, Kevin Jose, Global Board Director of ADIS. Kevin, would you please take your seat? Followed by Joshua Pardeti, Vice President and Economist of Pernata Bank. Joshua? Craig Williams, Senior Technical Advisor of Civils Indonesia. Craig? Eko Santoso Brianto, Deputy P3 from BP Batam. Pa Eko? And last but not least, certainly, Ilham Akbar Habibi, Commissioner of Pollux Habibi International, which is also our host for this session. So thank you very much. What we're going to do is follow the format of asking each of our speakers to give us 5 to 10 minutes of their view of the key points that they want to touch on. Then we'll have a little discussion amongst ourselves, and of course questions, most importantly, questions and discussion points, suggestions from you in the audience. So thank you very much. And as our host as well, I've asked Pa Habibi to start us off this morning. Ilham?
Thank you, James. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure here to be here in front of you. Maybe let me explain what is actually the connect of me personally to this topic, because some of you probably know me more as somebody related to airplanes or technology, but why is Ilham suddenly speaking about Superblocks? Well, at the moment, a company that I'm involved in, Pollux Habibi, we are developing a superblock in Batam. Batam is an island just opposite of Singapore. And what many people don't know, Batam is actually also a city. The whole island is now a city which consists of 3 islands, Batam, Rempang, and Galang, all interconnected by bridges. And I remember Batam in the 70s, we had only 40,000, 50,000 inhabitants, and now Batam is at 1.3 to 1.4 million. And as I said, it's now something which is a city, and it has industrial areas, and has also very urban areas within the whole island, basically. So the size of the island is 95% of Singapore, so you can also see where it's going. So at some point in time, probably because of the synergistic effect, particularly with Singapore, but also with Johor Bahru, I personally see Batam developing into something very major within Indonesia. So what is actually, I mean, just adhering to the topic, that the overarching topic of what we are discussing today and tomorrow, which is actually innovation. So what's actually the innovative aspect of a superblock here? Well, first of all, superblocks have been known since some years already, predominantly in so-called urban areas. So wherever you have scarcity of land, then if you want to develop something bigger, then you have to go up, right? There's no, you cannot go right because there's no land available. And a superblock means also that you integrate various aspects of what is needed for a human, basically living in that particular area. You do have a mall, which is usually the underlying, basic structure. And then on top you find towers. Towers could be for residential, for hospital, for offices, for universities, and for, of course, for apartments, right? Rented or basically strata title apartments. So all of it integrated. I think one new aspect here is that traditionally you would build superblocks only in very, very large urban areas, like in Jakarta itself, or probably in Surabaya. Well, what we have done so far is we have gone into an area which was not known, basically, to accommodate superblocks as such, and the response was enormous. So I think we were very lucky and very actually well advised to start our project about less than a year ago, and so the uptake has been enormous. So it shows that actually the interest in such urban structures is also available in markets where previously you would not have thought that people would be interested in that. And it's probably showing that the vision of how human life should establish itself in the future doesn't really different so much whether it's a very large metropolitan area or megapolitan area like Jakarta, or something which is smaller, just 1.4 million people. But because people travel, they're exposed to other concepts through the internet or through media in general. So whatever is desired by somebody who lives in a smaller city, it might be the same or very similar to somebody who lives in the much larger city. Of course, there has to be adjustment of standards. I mean, there's something to do with basically buying power, right? I mean, the buying power of somebody who lives in Jakarta, on average, is probably lower than, for instance, somebody who lives in Batam. But we can work around that. There's technology to make that happen. It starts with a good concept. However, there's things that are also in common. I think everybody wants to have something which is, I'll call it a sustainable way of life. I mean, you have everything around you. It needs to be ecologically balanced, needs to be human-centric design. Whether that's in a small city or a big city, I think it's all about the same. I mean, the expectations have become global. The standards or the necessary design criteria to be successful in a particular market are probably still very local and will remain local. But however, there are some things that are very global. So I think I don't want to say too much because my colleagues certainly here on my left side have also something to say here. So I think I'll leave it like that and give it back to you, James. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ilham. That gets us off to a very good start. And now I'd like to call on Kevin Jose. He has extensive experience, not just in Indonesia, but around the region, so he can give us a more global perspective. Just pass this baton down in that direction.
Good morning. I was very privileged to be asked to speak today on the subject of Superblocks, sustainability and quality of life. And when I was asked to join the panel, one of the questions that came to me was, what is a superblock? I'm sure that means different things to many different people in the room. To me, a traditional superblock in the context of Indonesia, Jakarta, probably something like Sudirman Central Business District, maybe even Mega Kuningan. But I think that's a fairly narrow, reductive kind of understanding of what a superblock is and what it can be. I'm based in Singapore and I'm part of the ULI, Urban Land Institute. And as part of that, we've been looking at ways of developing sustainable living in high-density cities. So at one kind of end of the scale, I see a superblock being something like Singapore. Singapore is a city, it's contained, it has a certain amount of finance space and resources. One of the things we've been looking at in Singapore with the ULI and Centre of Livable Cities was how to maximise high-density living, but also making the quality of life bearable and making it sustainable. In terms of looking at that in the context of Indonesia, again, there are different types of superblock. As I say, we have the traditional view of the very dense city centre examples as Sudirman City Centre. But I also think there are other examples that are outside of Jakarta, things like BSD, where we've worked quite a bit in terms of initial master planning. Those two are a type of superblock. What are the challenges that are facing development here in Indonesia and particularly in Jakarta? We have a number of developments in terms of existing and new superblocks. But as I see, one of the main problems is that they're isolated. There's no connectivity. That is one of the key problems that we have here in Jakarta. Sustainable, what is one of the most precious kind of resources that we have and that we're lacking here in Jakarta? And that to me is time. People spend an inordinate amount of time travelling between superblocks, travelling from outside the city into the city, and I think that is the key challenge in terms of moving forward into a sustainable and livable environment within Jakarta. So what are we doing? I'm an architect. I've lived in Jakarta. I know Jakarta well. I've sat in the traffic jams here. I've had a lot of fun. We're working on a number of projects here, including the new high-speed rail link between Jakarta and Bandung. And that can be a catalyst in terms of new development around the new stations. We're working on 2 of the new station locations, and we see that as being an excellent catalyst for new superblock development, not just high-rise, but surrounding 200-300 hectares around that catalyst. We're also working on the Jakarta MRT system, which again is pivotal in making life here sustainable. How do we join up these isolated superblocks? And that to me is one of these key questions. We worked in Dubai on Dubai Metro. We're working on the LRT here in Jakarta. And all of those initiatives in terms of connectivity, I believe, are going to be pivotal to the success of how Jakarta develops, how Indonesia develops, and how individual superblocks can actually make sense in this environment.